ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. For reasons that are diverse, I had requested an audience with the Pope in Rome. Actually, I had been in the Vatican several times. I had met with Paul VI. I met with John Paul II. I was part of several delegations of interfaith relations, international interfaith relations, that made visits to the Vatican in the name of the World Jewish Congress. And John Paul II had also been for a visit in Venezuela. And when he was in Venezuela, he held large prayer meetings with hundreds of thousands of people, as popes usually do. But in addition, he had two small gatherings. One was with the diplomatic corps, and the other one was with the interfaith organization that I preside in Venezuela, between Jews, Christians, and all other faiths. I remember that the meeting took place in the palace of the nuncio. That is sort of the ambassador of the Vatican in every country, and in Venezuela there is one. At that time, I had the opportunity of addressing John Paul II in name of our organization. In addition, of course, to welcoming him, etc., I said to him, most rabbis are Jewish, you know. So I said to him, its time has come for closer relations between the State of Israel and the Vatican. I think that in his response, he may have wanted to say something about it. Maybe they were already planning on it, but he somehow refrained. You felt he hesitated for a moment, but then he said, referring to the Jewish people, that we are the elder brothers of Catholics, of Christians. And I think that was the first time that he used that expression in public. That was in Venezuela. So that the meeting with Pope Francis that took place only a few days ago in Rome was a sequel, a continuation of relations that I had established with religious leaders of the Vatican, even though this time there were other ideas that pushed me, that invited me to go seek an audience with Pope Francis. Before doing so, I spoke to Rabbi Abraham Skorka. Rabbi Abraham Skorka is the president of the Latin American Seminary for Conservative Rabbis. He's a very erudite fellow. I had met him a number of times before, but he had inter-religious conversations, theological conversations with Jorge Bergoglio. Jorge Bergoglio was the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, but Jorge Bergoglio is now Pope Francis I. As a matter of fact, just a few days after he became Pope, he called Rabbi Skorka. Skorka said, he's walking in the street, suddenly his cell phone rings. It's Jorge Bergoglio, but he's now the Pope. He invited him to come to Rome, and he actually spent several days in the same building where the Pope resides in the Vatican. They partook together of the meals, but Rabbi Skorka eats kosher only. So the food was brought from a restaurant called Baghetto, which is in the Jewish ghetto right next to the synagogue in Rome. And special food was brought, and to this day, when you walk into that restaurant, you will see photographs with the Pope, how the Pope and everybody else was eating kosher at that time. I spoke to Skorka because I wanted to know, give me some pointers about the Pope I should know beforehand. And he told me he's a very simple man. He's a humble man. He's an intelligent man. He's friendly. He's a good man. Well, having heard that from Skorka, I felt much more at ease. How did I get to the audience of the Pope? I imagine there are hundreds, thousands of petitions to meet the Pope. And there are so many hours during the day, so many days in the week. The Pope obviously cannot meet personally with everybody. That's why he has these large masses when he goes to different countries, so people should be able to see him even from afar. But a personal meeting with the Pope, of course, cannot be done with everybody. It so happens that a man by the name of Pietro Parolin was the nuncio of the Vatican in Venezuela at the same time that I was there, and he even made a luncheon, a kosher luncheon for me when I left Venezuela 3.5 years ago, when I became 80 and I retired really from the Jewish community in Venezuela. This time also the meal was kosher. From the Jewish Kehillah it came to the Nunciatura, to the palace of the nuncio, where several bishops were present, members of the Jewish community, and we had a very friendly luncheon, obviously. But now it seems that this Pietro Parolin, not too long ago, was named Secretary of State of the Vatican. That is the number 2 man, right next to the Pope. Well, I wrote to my friend Parolin, listen, I want to have an audience with the Pope. And through him, I did get an audience. And it is extraordinary. If you have been to the Vatican, you know that it is a very impressive place, full of history. St. Peter's, I think, the largest church in the world. I think someplace in Spain, I am not too sure in which city, so I don't want to quote it. There is a church that is actually just a few feet shorter than St. Peter's. They wanted to make it even longer, but because it would be then larger than St. Peter's, they stopped at a certain point. But St. Peter's, of course, must be very impressive. But what is most impressive is to go to the part where the Pope is going to receive you. You walk through different rooms full of paintings and marble and all sorts of decoration. Must have been restored several times because everything is right now really impeccable. Until we finally got to the room that is the entrance to the room where the Pope was going to receive us. The Pope came out of that room and greeted us. And he held the door for me and asked me to go through. Naturally, I am aware that the Pope is the religious leader of 1,200,000,000, I don't know how many Catholics in the world. He's a very important figure. Not only that, I think the personality of this Pope has established him as probably the most important religious leader throughout the world today. I said to him, no, you first. So he said to me, the roots come before the trunk. Go in, Rabbi. And he held the door for me. Well, I certainly wasn't going to contradict him if he said that, and we went into the room. We sat down. The Archbishop introduced me to the Pope formally, and I delivered a text. I read the text that I had prepared beforehand. After greeting, of course, the Pope, I said that we have to reflect after 2,000 years of monotheism, of Judeo-Christian ethics and morals in the world. The Holocaust took place in Europe, 2 world wars, with tens of thousands of people killed, assassinated in the Holocaust. How can we explain that? Maybe there is no explanation, but we should certainly learn from it that we should be very careful for the future, not to repeat any such thing. And I wanted to bring up 3 points for his attention. Number 1, the intent to delegitimize the state of Israel that is taking place now. How can we be blind to what people are trying to do to a people that was persecuted, that has given so much to humanity? I think more so than any other people in the world. If you take into account our number, which is very small compared to the rest of humanity, we have certainly done a tremendous job. And yet there is this intent to delegitimize, to deny to the state of Israel, the only one, the right of existence as an independent state. You know, Iran has already said it many a time, They would like to erase Israel from the map. And, of course, the intent was that the Pope should certainly be allied on the side of the State of Israel. Number two, I said there is a recurrence, a rebirth of anti-Semitism in the world. Somebody said, after the Second World War and the establishment of the State of Israel and the pangs of conscience, but the 1967 war apparently produced a certain change, and anti-Semitism started again to be present in the world. Somebody said anti-Semitism is a light sleeper. It was only asleep, but now it woke up again. But I said it's not only against Jews, it is also against Christians. Every week we read about persecution, killings, including of Christians as well. How ironic it is that the safest place in the Middle East for a Christian is the State of Israel. There they know that their rights are protected. That is ironic, really. Well, once again, of course, the Pope has to take the side of what is definitely the right side, which is against anti-Semitism. And my third point was about Venezuela. He's very well aware of what is going on in Venezuela, that ostensibly a democracy, but in practice something altogether different, and that his intervention may be for an honest dialogue between the different sectors in Venezuela of society, but a dialogue that should produce results, not only an experiment in words, not a phonetic dialogue without any concrete results. Well, the Pope replied and he said that peace is the most important thing in the world, as he deduces from what I say that all these confrontations lead to no good. And he said you have to take into account the hypocrisy of many nations that give arms to both sides in order to satisfy their really economic interest in the situation and their lack of morality. The Pope was very emphatic in that. He said the Third World War has started already, except that this time it's in installments. It's like a television series that is being played out in the world, and that we should be very conscious of that. I presented him with a copy of the Haggadah, which is our text for the Seder of Pesach, and we all know that the Last Supper was a Seder of Pesach of Jesus, so it's of great interest to the church. It's a text that has the original Hebrew, of course, with a Ladino translation. Ladino is an old Spanish used by Sephardic Jews in Turkey, in Spain, in different places. Then it has beautiful art and my own comments, which are in Spanish. But the giving him of the Haggadah had another purpose as well, because the Haggadah gives testimony to the cry for freedom of the Jewish people, that no one has the right to enslave anybody else. We were all created by one God, something that later on, as we left Egypt, was again emphasized by being at Mount Sinai, where the one God of all humanity, the creator of the universe, made manifest his will to the Jewish people, and to the Jewish people to all the other nations of the world. As he said, we are the root, he is the trunk. But there was an additional purpose. From Mount Sinai, our ancestors had gone to the land of Israel, the promised land, so that the culmination of the breaking of the shackles of slavery went through Mount Sinai, but its eventual purpose was the land of Israel, thereby legitimizing the right of the Jewish people to the state of Israel. The Vatican is, of course, very important because of its treasures and relics, but I think that the importance of institutions are their people, their leaders, and I think that at this time Francis is certainly becoming ever more a great leader of the Catholic faith and respected by many, many people. He is the Bishop of Rome, but above all, of course, he is the Pope. Isn't it a pity that we don't have better relations between peoples of different faiths. We all live in the same planet. It is a space rocket. We're in a spaceship in the world. What you do in one place has its effect in another place. I think it's time to stop threatening one the other, and to the contrary, to come closer to each other. As the Navi Micha said, the day will come when different people, each one professing his own faith, we will all come to Jerusalem. We'll all become united and come closer to God. Even though I met great people, at the same time, I also came closer to God because of these experiences of the last few days.